Welcome to the Sonic Cinema Podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle, and thank you for joining us at www.sonic-cinema.com. This is part two of my discussion with Marv Dickey on our respective annual horror movie marathons during the month of October. And here we are going to be discussing our 10 favorite horror films of all time. This was a complicated endeavor for Marv, but he had some pretty interesting films to list, and we compare and contrast and talk about the films on our respective lists, so I hope you enjoy that. Well, we've gone through some of our favorite new horror films, or new to us horror films, from the past month, and now I'd like to just sort of do a quick rundown of our respective. I know you said it was gonna be tough for you, which that doesn't really surprise me that one bit, given how much of a horror fan that you are.
This task that this task, man. Yeah. I was cussing you at some point, man. No offense, and I didn't really truly mean it, but this homework that I had to do, I've never put together a top 10 list of my favorite horror films before.
Yeah,
and I legitimately, my first list was like 65 deep. I seriously said, I'm going to start with naming all the ones that I would consider my favorites.
Yeah.
It was legitimately like 65. And then I cut it down to about 40. Mm-hmm. And then I got to like about 30. And then I got it down to 19. Mm-hmm. And then I was all like, let's do top 19. Let's just do top 19. Yeah. Please, I can't do this anymore.
Well,
I had my my cork board and my yarn attaching each one, and I got my little index cards full of notes. And, yeah, big old.
You sent me the GIF of Charlie Day, the conspiracy, the board.
Yeah,
of his,
the mailroom
yeah, that
episode.
was funny. Well, and the thing is, it's like I know how difficult it is to make a list like that, because I mean, a couple months back I did a list of the 40 movies that shaped my first 40 years on Earth, and it's like some of them were easy choices, but there were at least like 10 to 15 more films I probably could have had on that list, but I don't know what I would have removed. And it's like that's always the rub with that. And I mean, especially when it comes to movies that have an impact, or genre that has a particular impact on you, it's definitely difficult to whittle that down.
Narrow them down. Fit them in a tiny little box of 10.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, it's like earlier in October, I said, it's like, yeah, I have a feeling my top 10 horror movies might change this year. It's like, honestly, when I go back on my list, it really didn't. Most of them have been on there for a few years. And then, of course, when I said, oh, yeah, 1 through 5 is set, but 6 through 10, maybe not. And then, of course, it occurred to me, oh, crap, I don't have this on here. So that's going to be my number 6. But, yeah, I mean, for the most part, my list has fundamentally been the same. The biggest change this year was the Law of the Order is a bit different from what it has been in previous years. But I mean, it's and the thing is, it's like I can theoretically see a world where like American Werewolf in London or Monster Squad would rate higher on this list, or rate on this list at some point. But I can also, it's what will I remove? And that's always the biggest question, is like when doing lists like this, is like, okay, I've got movies, but I've got this amount of movies, but what can I remove from it in order to make this the specific length that, it should be.
Right. Put it in the box.
Yeah.
Put it in the box. Yeah, the box of 10. There's only 10 little spots for each movie, and that's how I was like. I'm like, there's more eggs in the carton. I'm into my head. I'm like, I'm just seeing the world as like, there's more to 10 in this thing.
Yeah.
Why, Brian? Why?
Hey, I like a good challenge though. I mean, it's a worthy challenge though, I think.
Yeah, it was a challenge for sure. Like I said, I've always said like what my favorites are, but I've never specifically designated a slot for each one. And besides, my number one has always been my number one since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think something like that, like we hold that high a regard. I mean, it really that's the one that's always though is the top of the list. I feel like in the end is always going to make the most sense because of the fact that it's like, well, yeah. I mean, if it's something that you've been a favorite, it's been a favor of yours since you were a kid or for like 20, 30 plus years. It's like it makes absolute sense why it's going to be up there.
Right.
So yeah. So to start off on, I'll go ahead and start off with my number 10 list, and it's one of the more recent. There are only two films from like the past 30 years that are on this list actually, and they're in my 10 and 9 slot. And number 10 is James Wan's The Conjuring, which was absolutely has been a favorite of mine since I saw in theaters a few years ago. Is the best film that James Wan has done. He after it was we were talking about Dead Silence earlier and just how ridiculously bad that was. One of the things that struck me was watching that for the first time, and I had already seen Death Sentence, which came out the same year as Dead Silence, which is not really a horror film. It's based on a book in the Death Wish vein. But
is that the Kevin Bacon movies?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
But the next horror film that James Wan did after that was Insidious, which I really love as well. Yeah. And the thing that struck me the most is how the director of Saw and then Dead Silence was able to take a step back and basically become a master of the ghost story, of paranormal storytelling, of supernatural storytelling after that with his Insidious films and now with The Conjuring. And The Conjuring, which is based on the actual life of the Warrens, who are paranormal investigators. This is about one of the most notorious cases. And it's a movie that it follows in the Exorcist vein in a lot of ways, and it's hard for a movie like that not to. And it just holds on to you from the first moment, even from the prologue with the Annabelle doll, and just doesn't really let go. And it's easily the best movie James Wan has ever been in. He's ever done as a director. He gets fantastic work from everybody.
I absolutely agree. It was actually I did as a theme a few years ago was also the 50 movies I hadn't seen, because last year I did franchises, but that was the first movie I watched, and it wound up being the best movie I watched that year. Was The Conjuring.
So that was my number 10. My number 9 is I mean, I don't know. Do you want to go back and forth on our lists, or?
Yes. Yeah, why not? That'll help me keep track.
Okay. Okay, so my number 10 is The Conjuring.
My number 10 is a movie that saved horror in the 90s. Mine is Scream.
If you'd asked me like 10 years ago, it definitely would have been on my list. And it's probably still in the top 15, 20 for me, easily.
I was taken off guard by the movie. As you know, horror was dying a miserable death in the 90s.
Yeah.
We had probably, to me personally, Jason Goes to Hell was probably is one of the worst Friday the 13th movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you say about Jason Takes Manhattan. That was like the only Friday the 13th movie we got in the early 90s. It was 93, I believe.
Yeah.
We got a couple Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy's Dead, which I absolutely adore because it's so cheeseball and campy. But we also got Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was, a new take, it was good enough. It's not, to me, it's one of the worst nightmares. But
a lot of people we completely disagree on that. I mean, I can't speak about Frey's Dead, but I mean, I love New Nightmare. And the thing is, it's like when you think about New Nightmare and Scream together, it makes sense. Like there's some of the DNA for Scream, even though Wes Craven didn't write the movie, is in New Nightmare, I think, in terms of the execution. And
yeah, look, just to be fair, to defend myself here, I like A New Nightmare. I don't hate it, and I will watch it again and again. Mm-hmm. But to me, if I'm ranking all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, at the bottom is Part 2, and right above it is A New Nightmare.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, absolutely, Scream. It was, there was a trend of fairy tale horror movies all throughout the early 90s too. We got Leprechaun, Rumpelstiltskin, a few dark Snow White movies. We got a Pinocchio. There was an underlying theme in the genre of, it was just awful. We had Misery. I think Misery was 90, right?
Yeah, Misery was 90.
We had Misery, Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah,
that's about it. But
and we had a couple of King adaptations too. But I mean, for the most part, other King adaptations as well. But for the most part, horror did kind of was kind of on a downward.
Yeah, trending downward.
Mm-hmm.
We can communicate with the millennials here. It was trending downwards, kids.
Yeah.
But when Scream came along, it came out the same day as Beavis and Butthead Do America. Mm-hmm. And I was absolutely the world's biggest Beavis and Butthead fan. And I wanted to see that one, but my buddy Mark wanted to see Wes Craven's new movie. And I'm like, all right, it's horror, and I love horror, but it was stagnant. I guess a good term would be stagnant. The horror genre was stagnant. We went opening night, and we didn't know what was coming. Mm-hmm. And that first viewing of Scream, especially on the big screen, and at the time, nothing like that had been, to remain spoiler free, the killers came out of nowhere for us, both of us.
Yeah.
So it was like, what? Are you kidding me? It blew our minds, and it was just a big breath of fresh air for the horror genre, and that's one of the reasons why I had to put it on my list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, I absolutely love Scream. It's one of Wes Craven's best films. I'm not going to say it's the best film because, I mean, you've got Nightmare on Elm Street, you've got Last House on the Left. But I mean, it's definitely one of his best films.
Music of the Heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it'd been a while since I had really, because I've talked about it and I've talked about it in other podcasts, and I've talked about it in reviews and stuff like that, how I sort of got away from the slasher genre in particular, but horror movies in general, for a few years. And I mean, I would watch one every once in a while, but I mean, I wouldn't really go out my way to watch them. I mean, Scream was one of the ones that sort of brought me back to the genre. And a big part of that was I was kind of becoming like a Randy type savant when it came to movie conventions and stuff like that at the time. That was when I started really getting into movies, was 95, 96. So, I mean, I was kind of like Jamie Kennedy's character in that movie. And that was one of the things that I liked about it. But I mean, I mean, the way it was structured, the way the story unfolded, the way the killers are revealed, the way the storytelling is, it it really was unlike anything that I think the horror film genre had seen in a few years. And then, of course, the irony is that the next Kevin Williamson script that got produced was I Know What You Did Last Summer, which basically is exactly the type of movie that Scream is poking fun of.
It goes back to what I was saying. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about The Burning. You know, Friday the 13th was a huge success, so there's a lot of clones. Who's the killer at the camp? You know, sleepaway camp and The Burning. But yeah, wow, there's a lot that came out that followed the Scream formula. But and even more irony that it was a parody film.
Yeah.
It was a parody of the horror genre, and a lot of people don't know that because it's so well done as a horror film itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my number.
You want before we move on? You want to give out a fun fact about part 2?
Sure.
About your mother.
Oh, thank you for because I completely forgot I told you this. I no doubt mentioned this. Yeah, so in Scream 2, which was partially filmed in Georgia at Agnes Scott College, in the lunchroom scene where Jerry O'Connell is singing to Neve Campbell, in the very, very back, my mother is an extra as one of the lunch ladies. And she was on set the entire day, and it was a long day. Jerry O'Connell was apparently really, really cool about keeping everything entertaining and stuff like that. And Wes was really a terrific director. She really got had an admiration for him after that day. Not that she was a huge horror fan herself, but I mean, it was something that was one of the things that she did, because she was an actress for a time, and I mean, she had bit roles and stuff like that, extra work primarily. But yeah, one of the things she got to do was Scream 2, and so I mean, she came back from that day just really kind of beaming about the experience in general.
She became a fan of more of Wes Craven, the man, the director, than his product.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I respect it. I had shown her Scream by that point, obviously, and because otherwise she wouldn't have been terribly interested in it. And, I mean, we did watch the third film in the franchise together as well when it came out a few years later.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah. So yeah, I mean, she had that. So I have a little bit of a personal connection to Scream movies. But I mean, that's not necessarily the reason that I like them. I like them because they're really, at least the first two are really effective horror movies.
Yes. Even 4 brings it back, and it's really solid.
Yeah.
But that's a debate for another day, because I've gotten into it with people about the part 4.
Yeah. So my number 9 is the newest film on this list, and it's one that came out. It's one that came out earlier this year. It is It Chapter 1. I've had the miniseries on this list a few times over the years. It's gone back and forth as to whether it's on it. I absolutely love this version of Stephen King's story. I thought the fact that it focuses exclusively on the kids, it doesn't go back and forth like the miniseries does, as to, oh, well, it's Mike bringing the group back and we get the flashbacks and stuff like that. No, this is the present day. This is quote unquote present day, which is to say it's set in the specific time and place that's the most of the movie is set, and it is the way they ended up bringing this to life is extraordinary. I love the cast in it. I love the way Andy Muschietti, who directed Mama, which was another very good horror film. The way he brought it to life, Bill Skarsgård puts a really unique spin on Pennywise, and does the best thing possible, which is not replicate what Tim Curry did, but instead does his own thing. And I absolutely love the movie. It's one of the few movies I've seen multiple times in theaters this year. It's one that I know I cannot wait for them to do chapter 2 in a couple of years, and I'm very curious to see how their interpretation of the adult part of King's story, how that's going to work, especially being somebody who's been a fan of the miniseries for the longest time and knows that while yes, there are things about the adult part of that story that work, there are other parts that don't work, like the giant spider creature that is it at the end of the movie.
Right. I absolutely adored that movie. It was phenomenal. I've only seen it once, and I can't wait for the Blu-ray. I believe in December it's coming out.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I have one huge complaint about that movie, and it doesn't hamper the overall enjoyment for me, except for it's just a bit of an annoyance for me. Every time Pennywise did anything, it was a jump scare. It was loud noises, music, a lot of bangs on that piano whenever Pennywise would do something.
Yeah.
Like the scene in the basement. The scene in the basement when he's just like charging, swimming at him. It doesn't. Jump scares have their place in horror. I absolutely, like a false reveal. A jump scare is fine.
Yeah.
Like you creep around the basement and then all of a sudden the cat jumps at you. And boom! They hit the piano. Hit the piano really loud. I understand, but to every time the villain showed up or attacked or anything was associated with a jump scare, and I'm like, there's a lot to be said about a movie that doesn't have to go there.
Yeah.
Every time, and you can have the original didn't have jump scares at every turn, and I think that's one of the things I enjoy about it. Plus, I do, like I said, Skarsgård did. It's Skarsgård.
Yes. Yeah.
Play Pennywise. Anyways, him not being the playful Tim Curry clown was I did like that it did separate the two. It's like saying here in an alternate universe, this is Pennywise.
Yeah.
In this universe, Pennywise. So I love that, and he didn't try to replicate Tim Curry like you said. And I think that's one of the best parts about it.
I mean, I think one of the best things, especially if you're comparing it to a miniseries, I think one of the best things that they did in this, I mean, I've never read Stephen King's book, so I don't know if it's a big part of the book's arc or not, but one of the things that really grabbed me about the film, one of the reasons that it kept going and just really latched on to me was the idea that Bill is in denial about Georgie's actual fate. The fact that he says he's disappeared as opposed to everybody knows he's dead. The fact that he can't come to terms with what exactly happened to Georgie. That is one of the most powerful things about the movie, and it's one of the things that really grabs you emotionally about the movie and just puts you through the ringer while this story is unfolding.
And yeah, I agree there because it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard or talked or anything about people who have lost, like someone's gone missing. They unless there's definitive proof that they're no longer in the living plane, they still treat it like they are, and they're just not here. They don't know where they are, but they're not here. They're off doing something else, whatever they are, or doing whatever they're doing, and it's heart wrenching. especially when it's written on the wall to everybody else around them that, you know, I'm sorry, your brother, your son, your daughter, your sister, your mother, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
You know, and when they say, oh yeah, they're going to be coming back, all right.
You
know, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. They'll be back. You know.
Yeah.
And that's with Bill and Georgie is like even in the original miniseries, you know, when they say when Georgie's dead and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
Well, and the thing is, it's like Bill in the miniseries, though. I mean, he's gotten to that place of acceptance. He's in a different area of. I mean, he's still grieving, of course, but at the same time, he's accepted the fact that Georgie's not coming back. He's just going through the grieving process. Where Bill in the movie, he just hasn't gotten to that point where he thinks that deep down he's going to find Georgie at some point. And yeah, the idea that, I mean, I've been fortunate enough not to have anybody missing in my life as far as, you know, they've disappeared and haven't heard, you know, what happened to them. But no, I completely get why it would be so difficult to let go. And why it would be so difficult to, you don't want you want proof of what happened to him, but deep down you don't want to, because you're afraid that it's going to confirm your worst suspicions.
Yeah, the closure is going to be negative.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, it is worth every bit of praise that it's gotten.
Mm-hmm.
You ready for my number 9?
I am.
Mine is from 2010. You're going to see you said yours are going to be a lot older.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of older movies. Like maybe later I can tell you my honorable mentions, but so to speak. But a lot of mine are more modern, within the last 40 years or so.
Yeah.
Number 9 is from 2010, and it's a South Korean film. Again, like the home country of Train to Busan. But this one is I Saw the Devil.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I have. I actually saw it in the theaters. One of the art house theaters in Atlanta actually played it. So yes, I have seen I Saw the Devil. And yeah, that is a really good. I've always considered it more thriller than horror. But yeah, I mean it's definitely it's definitely horror vein.
Well, thriller is to me it's like there's horror and then there's all these subgenres.
Yeah.
And there's more subgenres to horror than any other genre, but from vampire to zombie to thriller, thriller / suspense. You can put those both in the same. But it is a thriller, but it's also a little bit of a torture horror.
Yeah.
Because it's anybody who doesn't know out there is it's basically a revenge film. It's his fiance. I can't think off the top of my head. His wife, fiance, or girlfriend. His significant other. We'll say that. Car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, and she's confronted with a serial killer who does what he does with her.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a secret agent for South Korea, and he winds up tracking this guy down and finding him. And through a series of capture and releases, he basically makes this guy's life a living hell.
Yeah.
An absolute torture-filled living hell. And he's paying the price for what his deeds. And the atmosphere in this movie, to me, it grabbed a hold of me and it wouldn't let go. And I rented it because I wanted something new, I want something fresh. I rented it back in 2011, 2012, and that weekend that I had it, I probably watched it 3 times. I absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't watched it since because I wanted to give it some time to mellow out because I had watched so much. I consumed it a lot. I just wanted to give it some time. And when I was thinking, I was like, what about foreign films for my list? I went to one that's on my list a little bit higher, and this one popped in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so number 9 is for me is I Saw the Devil.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I have seen them. Fairly certain I've got a review of it on Sonic Cinema. Yeah, I really liked it. Definitely. I mean, it was coming off of Chan-wook Park's revenge trilogy of Old Boy, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Lady Vengeance. I mean, that was because of the fact that I gotten into those movies. That's part of the reason why I became interested in watching the movie. And yeah, I ended up seeing it and really enjoying it. Um, really thought it was on par with what Park had done as far as the revenge thriller. So
Right.
yeah, my number 8 is it's one of the iconic horror movies. It's 1960s Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Yes.
It is. I look at this, and this is even before you even consider the sequels that were made in the 80s. I consider
Right.
this ground zero for the modern slasher film. If you look at the
Absolutely.
structure, if you look at the way it builds the character of Norman Bates, it is straight on slasher film. And one of
Yes.
the thing, and it was funny, it's like I reviewed both this and Texas Chainsaw Massacre for my movie Weeks this past October, and it was interesting that it was completely
They're connected.
unintentional that both of them are inspired by the story of Ed Gein.
Absolutely.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre more so than the story of Psycho, but both of them have that genesis in that story. And
Right.
just the fact that the way it's one of the definitive horror movies. I mean, it's one of the definitive movies. Period. It's one of Hitchcock's very best films. I mean, there's really not much you can say about that hasn't been said by dozens of and hundreds of other people before. Just the way he builds the suspense, the way he misdirects you in thinking that Janet Leigh's character is going to be the main character of this movie, and then turns into Norman Bates, and the way that we sympathize with Norman Bates. And the
Yes.
way that I mean, you get the feeling in the parlor scene with him and Janet Leigh's character that something's not quite right with him. In particular, something is not quite right with his relationship with his mother. But at the
Mhm.
same time, you can't quite pinpoint what is going on. And it's really interesting in the way Hitchcock is able to take you by surprise with the final reveal that it's not actually the mother doing these killings, it's Norman, is even though we've kind of had suspicions over the hour and 40 minutes before, it still takes you by surprise when you first see Vera Miles's character spin Norman's mother around.
Right. I love that movie. I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody's mother should be their best friend. Everybody's best friend should be their mother. And of course, we all go a little mad sometimes.
Yeah.
And of course, the little fun facts about that movie is, of course, everybody knows the chocolate syrup that's used for blood, but not a lot of people know that the very first Psycho was the first movie to show a flushing toilet.
Oh yeah, yeah. That
It was
is
the very first movie to show a flushing toilet.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't as bad as people thought it was.
Yeah, and it's yeah, I mean it was a really risky film for Hitchcock, especially coming off of I mean, he was by that point, I mean, he was well known as a director of elegant thrillers. You had North by Northwest, you had Vertigo, you had Strangers on a Train, Rear Window, and then all of a sudden he basically makes something as close to an exploitation film as Hitchcock could make. And it's this black and white thriller where the soundtrack is nothing but strings, and it's quite definitively one of his best films and one of his most imitated films. So Yeah, my number 8 is Hitchcock's The Shining. So,
you said The Shining.
Or, sorry,
Hitchcock's
Hitchcock's... that would be an interesting movie.
Psycho.
Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. So,
there you go.
What is your number 8?
My number 8, we're going foreign again, and this is my absolute 100% favorite horror that's outside the United States, and it's from 2000. It's from Japan, and it's Battle Royal, or Battle Royale, as some people pronounce it with the E at the end. This took me off guard in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
I believe a buddy went to a convention, a horror convention, and he picked up this bootleg, so to speak, of Battle Royale, because we never got an official release until a few years ago.
Yeah.
Here for home video. What is this, VHS? For the at home.
Yeah.
DVD release. Anyways, we got this bootleg DVD in 2004 from a buddy who brought it over. He's like, I bought this on a whim. I wanted something different, and people were praising it at the booth, and I was like, I thought they were just trying to sell me on it. Bring it over. Let's watch it. Cool. Let's do this. Why not? Let's do it. We all were blown away. It was stunning. And of course, if anybody doesn't know, if you've seen the Hunger Games,
mm-hmm.
you've seen Battle Royale's influence. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I don't know the honest truth, but from what I heard, the writer of Hunger Games said that they didn't know anything about this Battle Royale thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how true that is. That's just something I came across in, I think, a podcast or someone shouted out, or I read in a horror article or something. Don't know the truth and validity of that, but if he honestly says he's never heard of it, he's full of crap. Or she. Who is it? Female that wrote it?
It's female. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Games fans. But I refused to watch Hunger Games for like 2 years because I heard that it was pretty much Battle Royale, and I was like, I love Battle Royale. Screw that movie. But I watched Hunger Games, and it's good.
Yeah.
But but yeah, the Battle Royale Act was. The movie's about the Battle Royale Act and features Japan. I believe it's 2019 or 2020, and it's a way to control population.
Mm-hmm.
They would get a class of ninth graders, and they gas them to put them to sleep, and then they wake up and they're thrown into this deadly game on this island where they have to kill everybody in they got 3 days, and the last one standing wins. If not everybody standing, then these explosive necklaces on them will detonate and everybody will die.
Mm-hmm.
And the violence, the imagination that came with this, that these are like 15-year-old, even 16-year-old kids that in Japan that are just like they're having to kill their classmates
mm-hmm.
to try to win. It's like everybody dies unless there's one person standing. And I won't ruin the ending, of course, but it is so phenomenal. And there was a while where I got my own copy. I wound up ordering my own bootleg online, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop watching it for the longest time. I watched it over and over and over. And of course, I can't remember her real name. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at that with foreign names, but she was Gogo Yubari in the Kill Bill movies. She is in the schoolgirl with the flying
Yeah, I know
names.
who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't remember her name either, but yeah, I can't remember her real name either. But yeah, I know who you're talking about.
She's in Battle Royale as well, and when I had already seen the Kill Bill movies the year prior, and when she showed up in Battle Royale, I was like, hey, it's Gogo. And I was like, man, what else has she been in? And not much really.
Mm-hmm.
But Battle Royale stunned me. It floored me. Part 2, the first 45 minutes of Part 2 are absolutely ridiculously good, and then it becomes they escape the game like everybody escapes the game, and it becomes a political thriller pretty much. But it's not that good. It really isn't. After 45 minutes and everybody escapes the game, you can turn it off. You can just turn it off. You've seen enough. You've seen the good part. But that's my number.
Yeah, unfortunately, I still have not seen Battle Royale. I know a lot of people love it. I mean, I know I definitely know its reputation based on the Hunger Games, but yeah, I still have not actually seen it. I mean, that's definitely something I will make a point of seeing though, just because I mean I've heard so much about it, and it's like I've heard it's really good. So it's like yeah, I just I have such a backlog of movies already that it's like I need to see that. I mean, it's so hard to keep up sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Especially when you have a good summer that you don't get to everything.
yeah, exactly. um, all right. So my number 7, we're gonna go way back here. This is actually the earliest film on my list. It is from is the Swedish director Benjamin Christensen, and it is his 1921 film. So it's a silent film, Haxan, which is also known as Witchcraft Through the Ages. It's definitely one of the more curious silent horror films. The Criterion Collection released it several years ago. I don't think they've reissued it for Blu-ray like they have a lot of the other movies. But it's I'm sure you could also find it on YouTube as well. It is a curious blending. It has the structure of a documentary about how witchcraft has been seen throughout the ages, but there's a lot of recreations and there's a lot of stage sequences, and it's very infamous for the director Christensen portrays Satan in it, and the his visage as Satan is one of the more iconic sights in silent horror cinema, and it's something I came across. I watched about 15 years ago when I first started to get into Netflix and first started to rent stuff through Netflix. I'd heard about because of the Criterion Collection, and I saw it, and it really made a lasting impression on me. And it's it's just it's just mesmerizing. It's a fascinating. I mean, there are title cards in it. It's silent film, so it's all title cards and soundtrack. But it's just if you're a fan of horror cinema, I cannot recommend it enough. Trying to find it and watch it. It's one of the most. I feel like it's probably also one of the most influential horror movies of all time, as far as a particular type of horror when it comes to witchcraft, when it comes to satanic horror. It's definitely influential there, and it's something that I try to watch every October. It's one of my app, and it's this was one. This and It Chapter One were the only two horror films that were added to my top 10 this year. These were the two big changes as far as content, as far as my top 10. But it's been hovering around that area for a few years now. So my number 7 is Haxan, Witchcraft Through the Ages.
I have never heard of it.
I would definitely recommend it. I would definitely recommend it. Like I said, you could probably find it on YouTube. There are shorter versions of the movie as well. The Criterion has both like a 69-minute version that is called Witchcraft Through the Ages. The original one is about 2 hours, and it's weird combination of horror recreation, staged horror with documentary, and it's just fascinating to watch just in that respect.
Excellent. It's Haxan. Like, can you spell that?
Haxan.
A-N. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not how I was imagining it. Okay, I'll try to find it, definitely. You know, because I watched Kevin and Dr. Caligari
Yes.
a couple of years ago for the first time, and I was like, whoa! I was blown away by it. I was like, holy cow!
Yeah, that's
I do a good silent film every now and again.
Yeah, that and Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is one that that is gotta be in my top 15 as far as all time favorite horror. I absolutely love that one. Kind of surprised Criterion hasn't put it out yet, but the fact of the matter is, it's like that one, even though it's relatively public domain, I mean, you can always find it out on some format or another.
Right.
Okay, so my number 7 was Haxan. Was yours?
Mine is a film. You have to excuse me. I'm letting my dogs out. They were looking for a place to go. So there's a little bit of traffic going on right now. Sorry. A bit of an echo. My number 7 is a movie that basically it wasn't the first in its subgenre, but it was probably the one that brought the found footage subgenre to light, and that's the 1999's The Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, that's another one I would probably put in my probably my top 20. I don't know about top 15, but yeah, that was one that I was considering for my top 10 this year.
I was absolutely blown away. I had never seen anything like it, like on that level of like people actually, this is what they felt, man. You know, like that they played it off. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I was like, are you kidding me? This really happened to us? Because I had watched a sci-fi special.
Yeah.
The Sci-Fi Channel aired a special that about how it was real. Jerks. But total hook, line, and sinker. And like, I seriously went. I had to go opening night. I was like, I have to see this movie. I have to see it. And it was a packed house. I was like, wow, this is like people want to see this movie. And we watched it, and I was just like blown away. Everybody, I went with like 4 friends, and everybody who went and said like, I got sick, man. I thought I was going to be sick all the bouncing around and stuff. I was like, I never did. I never got sick. I never felt that. I was just stunned and amazed, and I loved it. And then we go home that night, and we see on E Entertainment, you know, the entertainment channel E.
Yeah.
The red carpet premiere for the movie about all the buzz. There's Josh, Michael, and Heather. Talking about the movie. I was like, what? I was like blown away even again. You know, like I was like, what? No way. This is all bullcrap. Whatever. So I had to see it again. And I took a group of, because I came from a large family of friends.
Yeah.
I call them. I don't have a family tree. I have an orchard. Just because I have so many friends with different last names.
Yeah.
But I wound up taking a bunch of friends to watch it from the perspective of this is phony baloney, and I was like, nothing changed. I absolutely loved it. Nothing, knowing that it's not real this time around, had no bearing on whether I liked it or not.
Yeah.
And I was so happy. I was so happy that I took another group of friends like that. The opening weekend, I saw it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I loved it. And all but 2 of my friends got motion sickness. And I thought it was funny. Whenever somebody's like, I don't like Blair Witch, I'm like, watch it again with an eye patch.
Yeah.
Like, you won't worry about that. When you take away depth perception, you won't worry about it.
Yeah, I had pretty memorable time watching that too. See, and the thing is like by the time it came out, I knew that wasn't actually, real. I knew that was a film. When I first saw it, it was actually the Monday after it came out. It only came out in like a couple of theaters, one of which was the United Artists, now Regal, Terra in Buckhead, very famous theater in Atlanta. And it was in 2, I think they had it in 2 screens. I went after, I was taking summer courses. I went and I was going back and forth on MARTA. So after my classes, I got back on MARTA, went to my car, drove back down to Buckhead to go to see it at the Terra. It was packed. This was the Monday after it opened. And no joke, I sat like 5 rows from the front. This is a large freaking theater. Like, it's a long theater. Like, they don't have stadium seating there. It's a very long theater though. So it's like I was near the front. And yeah, that movie definitely had an impression on me. And yeah, it worked completely for me, even knowing the fact that it's just a movie.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, the way that they set that movie up, the way that they set as found footage, the way they had marketed it was brilliant. And
absolutely. And I also blame the Sci-Fi Channel for helping out with that garbage because I got sick.
Yeah,
I got fooled. After I saw that movie like that weekend, I was like, oh man, I have to see if there's anything like this. I'm like, is this the only thing? And so I fired up the old web TV. We had a web TV at the time.
Yeah.
It's like $19.99. What are you gonna do? Got on web TV, went on like a message board or the bulletin board. I think they still called them back then.
Yeah.
And I discovered that there was another film that came before this, from Canada, I believe. It was called The Last Broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
About
I've heard of it.
Found footage of like a camera, like a news reporter with this cameraman, and one of them goes crazy.
Yeah.
And I had to find that movie. I totally forgot about it because it had been a couple of years. And in like 2006, I came across a copy of it, and I watched it, and it is really good. But like I said, it doesn't stand up. It doesn't stand up to Blair Witch. And even after nearly 20 years of found footage films, I almost despise the genre, the subgenre, old found footage. But there are some that are still good.
Yeah, and
there's some that
yeah, there are a handful that work still. I mean, part of the problem is, I think, especially it especially happened after, I mean, I think part of the reason that Blair Witch stood out is the fact that and part of the reason why nothing else could really duplicate success is the fact that they played it as being 100% real. Like, you watch a Paranormal Activity movie, you watch any other found footage movie, you're watching a movie. Like, it's
no thanks.
Like, yeah, it's just a movie. Like, there's no like backstory to it or anything like that. It's staged. You're watching a movie. And yeah, that was one of the things that was so effective about Blair Witch, even after that it was just a movie. The fact that they sold it that way, the fact that they played it off that way, and the fact that they did it in film, like, oh, this is footage that we put together of this crew trying to make a documentary. And it just completely works.
And I think it's because it was the first mainstream one as well.
Yeah.
Like, people weren't exposed to that type of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
It was a new, fresh product, and you can't be fooled twice.
Yeah.
With the same gimmick.
Yeah.
So that's my number 6, I believe.
No, it was 7. It was 7.
7. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we are up to number 6, and my number 6, I'm fairly certain you're going to find this sacrilegious that's so far down, but I promise you I promise you there are better there are movies that I still love this movie as much as I did the first time I saw it. It is Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2.
Oh, I'm glad I made it. I'm not upset. I'm glad I made it.
Oh, it was going to make the list. I mean, that was the one that's like, I had my top 5 already made, and then number 6 comes across, and I remember that, and it's like, shit, I remember that. Well, that's my number 6. But yeah, Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2, which and the thing is, it's like, I don't think I really saw the Evil Dead movies until until Spider-Man came out, and I got interested in Raimi, and so I started to watch Raimi's films, and I started with the Evil Dead movies, and Evil Dead 2 just absolutely puts hooks in me, and I couldn't get enough of it. It's just I love the fact that it's a horror movie that's also staged like a Looney Tunes cartoon is probably one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah, it's very Three Stooges-esque, slapsticky almost. Did I lose you, Brian?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I'm just yeah, I'm still here. Sorry.
Obviously, the Raimi's influence are up there with his influence on Three Stooges, because even it goes as far as doing the fake Shemp credits.
Mm-hmm.
For part 1.
Yeah.
Because they had so many stand-ins. You know, that goes back to the whole Stooges with Shemp, pretty much on his deathbed and can't act, so they tossed a wig on a bunch of people and only shot him from behind.
Mm-hmm.
Fake Shemps. And I knew about the fake Shemps before I even saw the Evil Dead stuff, because I grew up as a Stooges fan, and I'd be like, that's not him. That's not Shemp. That's some guy in a wig. And I was right. Nothing like validation when you're a child, when you catch something.
Yeah. No, I mean Bruce. I think I had seen Evil Dead 2 before. I think I had seen Evil Dead 2 before Spider-Man. I think I had seen it by that point. I mean, part of it was because of the fact that I had heard about it. I'd heard about when Entertainment Weekly was talking about DVDs, and they'd mentioned the Bruce Campbell commentary with Sam Raimi, and it's like that was something that it's like I absolutely need to see this movie just to listen to this commentary, which is basically something else. So yeah, I mean it was a movie that I'd seen just because I had heard about it, and I think part of it was also because of the fact that they talked about it in High Fidelity. You know, and Jack Black's character said it's like, what would you say? No, it was John Cusack's character who was saying, what would you say to somebody who had said, I hadn't seen Evil Dead 2 yet? And it's like, even though I had to see it after that because I loved High Fidelity, and
absolutely,
yeah, it just it was just so, yeah. I mean that movie is just it's a great it's a great use of comedy as horror, and it's like you have this debate as to whether it's a remake or a sequel, and it's like it's a remake but done in the vein of Warner Brothers cartoons.
Yes, but there's also there's a theory out there that Ash died at the end of part 1. Do you remember right before the credits roll, the camera shoots through the woods and through the house, right up into his face, where they actually busted out his teeth filming it?
Oh wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah, they filmed it on a dirt bike, and the dirt bike didn't stop quick enough, and the camera smashed out Bruce's teeth. They just edited it just right so it didn't look like he smashed out his teeth. But there's a theory that all the clocks stopped, and at least that one clock stopped in Evil Dead.
Yeah.
The theory is that he died, and part 2 and 3 he's in hell.
Okay.
Different levels of hell. That's just one of those fan theories, you know. There's no true validity, you know, as far as I know. Sam and I even haven't mentioned that they've thought that far into it.
Okay, so my number 6 is Evil Dead 2. So what do you have for your number 6?
Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay, because my alarm went off. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Usually it cuts out on phone calls. It'll cut it out. My number 6 is probably, although Psycho started the slasher genre, this one made it popular. 1978's Halloween from director John Carpenter.
Yeah.
There's not enough good things you can say about the original Halloween film. it started the whole slasher like uprising of the late 70s throughout the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, and it is, you can, you know, I mean, although Texas Chainsaw was there from 74, but that hadn't had the cult following that it does now. It was a movie that people were like, whoa, if you can see it, see it.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no home video.
Yeah.
True home video.
Yeah.
And there wasn't, I think 75, the Beta. The Betamax came out 75, or VHS came out 75.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But yeah, Halloween, John Carpenter's, originally called the Babysitter Murders, I believe, or Killer, the Babysitter, no, it is the Babysitter Murders.
Mm-hmm.
It's, Jamie Lee Curtis became a star.
Yeah.
On that movie. Sorry, my dogs are just going crazy right now.
That's
sorry,
all right.
I'm preoccupied. Michael Myers, he's an icon. When you think the most iconic killers in horror movies, you're going to list Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers. He's usually third behind those two monsters, and as he should be. You know, granted the series kind of trailed off through the years that didn't stay true to the original film, but the stalking that he does in that movie, it's just, it gives people the creeps. You know, like when he's peeking out behind the hedge and then he's not there.
Yeah.
And, but a lot of the success, I would have to say, a lot of the success that Halloween had was because of John Carpenter's score. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That atmosphere song, everybody knows it as the theme song.
Yeah.
It's in every Halloween shop, store, and pumpkin patch, and it's everywhere at Halloween.
Yeah.
And I've heard like house music, like dance remixes, and I've heard heavy metal versions of it. Mm-hmm. That song, and plus it's you know the score is just phenomenal for that movie. Mm-hmm. And it builds an amazing atmosphere for the movie. Wouldn't be, I think honestly, wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for John Carpenter, his style, and his music. You know, Jamie Lee Curtis did a great job. Donald Pleasance is amazing. Yeah. But I do attribute a lot of this stuff to the music, but the movie itself just it involves me because it's Halloween, man, and they do capture the Halloween feel. Mm-hmm. You know, when you, although every once in a while you see that it wasn't truly filmed in the fall. Yeah. And that, you know, the backgrounds and stuff, and then I noticed that little stuff, but to me, Halloween, it's not Halloween time like October without a feeling. And I didn't get to watch it this year, and I kind of regret that I didn't watch it. It's just a standard for me every year. Yeah. Just to peek in Haddonfield and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, my description kind of.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, I will say it's like I did watch it this year. It's not quite the traditionally speaking, it hasn't quite been the staple for me as other films are, but I mean it's definitely been that way the past few years. I mean, I think one of the things that, and I mean, you mentioned the score, you mentioned, you know, the fact that it feels like Halloween. I mean, I think one of the things that I love about that movie, watching it this last time, was the fact that it feels very much the story is just simple and it's simply told. It's the most pared down version of that story you could do, and it's effective. And it, you know, it's like you don't have you don't have complex story ideas coming through, and you don't need it. Like, why is Michael Myers like this? Well, there's no explanation for it. And I mean, Donald Pleasance just says he is evil, and it's like he does not have any humanity. And I think that's it's a big part of the reason why that movie is so effective.
Yeah, so he's a monster because he just is.
Yeah.
Who apparently knows how to drive.
Yeah. Yeah, how he learned to drive well in a psychiatric facility is beyond me.
Especially since he was a small boy when he entered.
Yeah.
It's been 13 years.
Yeah, exactly. So actually 15 I thought the prologue was 63, but
no, it's even the tagline I think is 13 years later.
Okay.
He comes home.
Oh, okay. Maybe
or maybe this 15 years later.
I don't remember. But yeah,
I am drawing the blanks.
Yeah.
You have to forgive me. I just checked my blood sugars and I'm very high, so I'm kind of distracted.
Oh no,
my blood sugar
that's all right.
I'm sorry for being kind of dull on this one, and I hate it because I absolutely love Halloween, and that's another thing why I think the remake of Rob Zombie failed. He spends the first half of the movie explaining why Michael Myers is the way he is. He had a bad childhood. His mother was a stripper, and she had an advertisement in the paper because I think she was also an escort or whatever. And kids at school found it and made fun of him, and it's like, I don't want to know why my monsters are monsters. Let the monsters just be monsters.
Yeah.
I don't care. We get enough of Jason. Just on a side note, along the lines, in the first movie, we get enough of Jason because that was the motive for Pamela Voorhees to do what she did.
Yes.
And that's all the background we need to know.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't need to find out, because he was a mongoloid, as they use, it's obviously a bad term these days, but that's the term they use in the movie. We don't need to find out that he was a special needs child, and because of that he was bullied, and he was sad, and his mom was the cook at the camp because she was a nice lady, but everybody made fun of her, and, or whatever. We don't need any of that. Just, he was a special needs child who got bullied, and he wound up dying because of it. Now he's back for revenge.
Mm-hmm.
But, simple. And I hate that nowadays they have to have reason, and like we're a bunch of idiots watching the movie and be like, oh, that's why he's angry and killing. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like they're talking down to us when they do that, and that's one of the things I felt about Rob Zombie's Halloween that he did wrong. And I think he really wanted to squeeze Sherry Moon Zombie in the film. His wife plays Michael Myers' mom. So I think a lot of it had to do with that. But it also was at a time where people felt the need to explain why the monster's the monster. In this movie, in the original, they don't. And I'm glad they don't. And they just only call him Michael Myers. And even in the credits, he was just called The Shape.
Yeah.
The stalking shape. And just a simple stalking. Just a good suspense. The suspense was built very well. And the kills were excellent for its time.
Yeah.
I love when he wears the sheet on his head and puts the glasses on.
Yeah, that was that was a good one. Yeah. Okay, so your number 6 is Halloween, and it's funny that you mentioned Jason and the first Friday the 13th, because my number 5 is the original Friday 13th, but I also include Friday 13th Part 2. And the reason that I do that is because of the fact that they are a completely circular storyline, is a completely circular narrative. And you mentioned one of the great things about Pamela Voorhees and the original Friday 13th is the fact that it's you don't get a huge convoluted explanation as to why she is doing what she's doing. And that is absolutely true. And the same can also be said for Friday 13th Part 2 when Jason takes over. Because you get a clear sense that the reason he is doing what he is doing is because of his mother and what happened towards his mother. Now, it takes a considerable leap to the idea that Jason was somehow alive all those years and now he's grown and all of that stuff. That is a considerable leap to make. But the fact of the matter is, it's like it begins the franchise proper into what it became, but those first two films really create. If it just been those first two films, it would be a successful first film as well as a pretty terrific sequel that closed all the loops that you don't necessarily need. You don't necessarily need anything more than that. It just is what it is, and that's one of the reasons that those two movies, Friday the 13th and Part 2, have endured for me for so long.
That big old mama's boy, huh? But yeah, that's you have to suspend disbelief a little bit more with the second one than you did the first, because he's living in a shack that he built himself. It's like,
yeah.
You would think in the last, 25 years? something like that, since he passed away or whatever it was. You think someone would have come across this, especially when the kids were like going out to Camp Blood and, fooling around out there and, drink and be teenagers.
Yeah.
You would think someone would have come across this shack in the woods or seen a smoke coming from a fire when, because it's supposed to be Camp Crystal Lakes in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I know that is because on the truck in the first one, there's a phone number on the truck for a service. It's like a service truck, and I can't remember if it was plumbing or electricity. And I looked up the area code, and the area code's in New Jersey. So it's in New Jersey, which makes sense why in Part 8 the cruise would go from Jersey to New York.
Okay.
Vietnam or whatever. But yeah, it's someone would have come across in the winters, because it's cold winters. He would have had to build a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Well, and
that's what it is. If you think too hard into it, you're going to find all these things. And I do that sometimes.
Well, and the thing is, it's like I've always kind of figured that the shack he has in Part 2 is that's one of the rundown camp buildings, campsite buildings. It's like that's how I've always looked at that, as opposed to being something that he built himself. Really? So.
Just because it was such a mess, and it looked like it was just parted together. That's why I always felt he built his own.
Oh, and I can certainly see that as well. I mean, you do bring up a good point that it's like, well, then nobody will have come across this. But no, I mean that's how I've always read that.
Oh, okay, I can see that. Like maybe he added on or fixed holes in the walls or something. I can see that too. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's weird that after all these years we have two different perspectives of living arrangements.
Okay, so my number.
But yeah, part 2, just a little. It showed his love for his mother when Jenny put on the sweater.
Yeah.
That definitely. Spoilers. Mm-hmm. But it definitely showed his love of his mother.
Yeah.
And how much it was his weakness.
Yeah.
And every killer is gonna have a weakness.
And it's definitely a bit of it's a little bit of callback to Psycho too, where it's like, the psychotic son is partially psychotic because of his mother. So
right. Yeah.
So my number 5 is Friday 13th and Friday 13th Part 2. What do you have for your number 5?
Mine is A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
Okay.
I absolutely love the original, but to me, this is when Freddy becomes Freddy.
Mm-hmm.
Freddy Krueger, he gets more sarcastic. His kills are a little more creative.
Yeah.
And he actually haunts dreams to the point where he's jumping around to the children. He did in the original, like Johnny Depp and Tina. Those they all got theirs, but this one we got to see him playing with them he was messing with
Mm-hmm.
the kids, like toying with them, a little cat and mouse game, and then he'd do what he can to finish them off.
Yeah.
And I thought the kills are creative. The just oh man, I can't like the puppetry with the veins. Walk the kid, and of course it takes place in like kind of a mental ward
Yeah.
of all these kids. They're dreaming of Freddy, and they all have their own issues, and he just goes there, and it's just under attack. It's the place is under attack by Freddy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just things get more creative. He gets more sarcastic. Like welcome to prime time. It's that the one-liners that Freddy's known for. Because he wasn't doing that until he sort of was a little upbeat a little bit in the first one, but he was more straightforward.
Yeah.
I'm a killer. I'm gonna get you. But I picked 3 because obviously it's one of my favorites. You can't have 3 without 1, but 3 is, to me, it's the best one.
Yeah.
And that's why I have it my part 5.
Yeah, I mean that is. Yeah, that is definitely that has definitely always been one of the high water marks of the Nightmare franchise, certainly. And I mean, when I saw it several years ago for the first time, I really liked it as well. I definitely see why people hold in such high regard. It's one of the few ones that has Wes Craven on it, and it was written by Darabont, right? Frank Darabont.
I believe it was. I think you're right.
I think he co-wrote it, or at least. So, yeah, Dream Warriors is definitely. I mean, I think that's one that part of the reason that I think that one works as well as it does is it really helps. It really takes advantage of what makes Freddy so unique among the slashers, and the fact that he inhabits your dreams, and the fact that the fact that that's how he gets at you. I think that's one of the things that makes him so unique is and one of the reasons why Dream Warriors works as well as it does.
Yeah, it's a coming of age tale for Freddy. He finds himself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that's the Freddy I enjoy. The sarcastic one-liners, the toying with them. I absolutely love that. That's the Freddy Krueger that I love. That's the Freddy Krueger that I want. And maybe that's why the Nightmare film kind of flat with me. The new Freddy was straight up serious and more evil than ever.
Yeah, I mean
that's my number 5.
Yeah, that's perfectly fair. So yeah, your number 5 is Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warrior. My number 4 is Roger Corman's The Mask of the Red Death, based on a couple of short stories by Edgar Allan Poe. Obviously, Mask of the Red Death is the big one. And it's Vincent Price as Prince Prospero, and the Red Death is set in basically the Dark Ages. One of the things that I love about this movie is I love the theatricality. I love Vincent Price's performance. I love the color scheme that Corman incorporates in this film. It's from 1964, and I love that it's in a way it's comparable to the Hammer films and the way that they approached the horror genre. It's very theatrical, very sort of operatic, and in the way it comes at horror. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that I like most about Corman's film, apart from the fact that Vincent Price is just absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, I love Vincent Price in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a huge Price fan. I know it doesn't. He almost made the list, just so you know.
Yeah,
I almost went with his version of I Am Legend, the Last Man on Earth.
Yeah,
that's my favorite Price movie. But Mask of the Red Death is absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It's phenomenal for its time. It was it should have been a horror or a Hammer film. It should have been.
Yeah, and
that's what I was going to actually. You threw me off because I was like, oh, I know what I was going to say. I'm going to tell him how it feels like it should have been a Hammer film, and then you already hit on that mark. So you took away my comment, man.
Well, and it's funny because of the fact that it's like it does feel like a Hammer film. It doesn't really feel like what we look at as a Roger Corman film. I mean, Roger Corman's known for more low budget exploitative films and fodder, and the fact that he made something that feels this that's this stylized and this big is surprising.
It feels like it came a whole nother level of his skills. Like he's proven he can do that. But he also proves that he doesn't need to, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But I'm okay. But didn't he direct a couple of Hammer films himself?
I don't know about that. I mean, I know this was made in England, but wasn't made with Hammer.
I know. I'm pretty sure he made a couple films with Hammer. It's towards the end of the Hammer Studios.
Oh, okay.
Like towards the I'm pretty sure. I'll have to double check that so I don't sound like an idiot on here. listen to this back years later and be like, oh, you moron. Yelling at myself.
So my number 4 is The Mask of the Red Death. And what is your number 4?
My number 4 comes from 2004. See, mine's more like, and I feel bad because mine are more mainstream, and people who are like, horror snobs are like, you can't have mainstream movies if you're not a true horror fan. I've gotten into these like headbanging arguments over what makes good horror.
Yeah.
There's some people that are like, it's not independent, it's not horror, like whatever. Anyway, so mine comes from England. It was a huge surprise, and it was a huge success, and it's a horror comedy. Have you guessed it yet?
Shaun of the Dead?
You got it. Yeah, Shaun of the Dead. This movie, it came out in 2004 in England. We didn't get it till 2005.
No, we got it in 2000. I saw it in 2004 in theaters.
Was it 4?
I saw it in 2004. It may have come out in 2003 in England, but no, we got it in 2004 because I remember watching it in theaters in 2004.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, yeah, I know for a fact I watched it in 2004.
Man, I kind of want to look it up now. Okay, my history of this movie is I heard rumblings about it. Yeah, it came out in 2004 in England. I don't know when it came out here in the States.
Now, it might have been earlier in 2004. They probably did get it a bit earlier than we did. But I know I saw it in 2004.
Okay.
So.
Well, anyway, I heard about it, the rumblings on the internet. I believe it was an article in Fangoria magazine as well. Mm-hmm. Movies we need to pay attention to, foreign movies we need to pay attention to, and Shaun of the Dead was on there.
Yeah.
And back in those days, we didn't have cable, we didn't have but what we had. And I, quote unquote, downloaded it.
Mm-hmm.
Illegal means I'm sorry. But I have bought like many copies for my friends and stuff, so I think I did it. But I downloaded it before it was here in the States, before we got a release date. Mm-hmm. I downloaded it and I watched it, and I fell in love with it. Like, I couldn't believe how good the movie was. And I watched it by myself, and then my roommate came home, and I said, you need to watch this. And we sat down and we watched it again. So within like 5 hours, I'd seen it twice.
Yeah.
My other roommate comes home about 2 or 3 hours later, and we watched it again with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like the second roommate watched it with my third roommate and I. So he'd seen it twice, and then I saw it 3 times within like an 8-hour period, and it was just. It's so phenomenal, and then randomly we had watched it, we loved it, and then we forgot about it. And randomly there was a commercial on TV that's coming to theaters here in the States. So it was like, between the time it was released in England to the time here, and unless I'm absolutely remembering wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was a time where I saw it and then it came here to the States in theaters, and I was shocked. I was shocked that it was in theaters because I figured it'd be just a DVD release.
Yeah.
Because most foreign horror is just a straight to DVD.
Yeah. Which I have a hard time considering English British films foreign horror, but I mean, I mean that's accurate, but at the same time they're still speaking English, so it's like that's why I have a hard time for it. But the fact of the matter is, it's like I have no problem with the fact that it's like we're covering a lot of ground as far as a lot of different types of horror movies here, and that's one of the things I like about it, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this. Because I'm really surprised that we haven't overlapped. I mean, I am surprised that we haven't, but I'm also kind of not surprised that we haven't because you have a bit more depth with the horror genre than I do, and I love the fact that you have Shaun of the Dead on here. It's like it would definitely be in my top 15. I absolutely love it. Yeah, I saw it in theaters when it came out, and I just absolutely laughed my ass off during it. And I mean, it was funny because of the fact that it was after 20. I had seen Night of the Living Dead. I had seen some of Romero's other horror zombie films by this point, but I had also seen 28 Days Later, and I had also seen Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake, and those two films. I mean, you see the evolution of zombies towards more of the rage zombies than the slow-moving ones of Romero's Dead movies, and so
right.
I love the fact that it's like this came about at a time where zombies in cinema were changing, and it's like the fact that this came out at that time is one of those things that's really interesting. But the fact of the matter is, it's like Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost. It's such a good film. It's such a fantastic film. I mean, you can tell that they have real love and affection for what Romero does, and they just have real affection for the genre as well. And it's like, yes, this is absolutely one. It's a comedy slash parody, but at the same time, it's also a really good zombie movie.
Yes, it's yeah, they were absolute fans of Romero to the point that he put him in Land of the Dead.
Yeah.
Do you remember their cameo in that?
No, I forgot that they were. I forgot he had cameoed. They cameoed in Land of the Dead.
Yeah, there were zombies on the wall that people were taking pictures of.
Okay.
But yeah, I fell in love with that movie, and I would say probably the first 3 years after it came out, I think I crossed either the 50 or the 60 times watching it mark.
Oh wow!
Like I guess I couldn't stop watching that movie, and I'm like, I want more. And then I discovered Spaced, and Spaced, like I loved that, and I watched that to death.
Yeah.
I consumed anything Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg. And then they came out with Hot Fuzz in 2006, and I saw that in theaters. I couldn't not see it in theaters. You know, here comes the guys again, the Shaun of the Dead guys. Oh my God, here we go! And I absolutely adored that, and I loved that, and I wound up watching that until it was like the DVD was like starting to skip because I'd seen it so much. And then like I just everything they did, everything they still do, I'm still like, what's Edgar Wright doing? Oh. Cool, like that's awesome. Like I would love to have seen his Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I could not. Shaun of the Dead is probably it's probably in the top 10 of my favorite, like maybe top 10 or 20 of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah, and rightfully so because it's just such a fun movie, and it is probably my favorite Edgar Wright film. I mean, just because of the fact that it was the first one I had seen. I mean, it was his first feature, I think, and it works so well doing what it does.
Right.
And
also, I may have, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep interrupting me.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I'm just excited about Shaun of the Dead. It may have also like rang a huge bell with me, and I connected with it because I got the references.
Yeah.
You know, I understood like, oh, that's from Dawn of the Dead. That's from Night of the Living Dead. Like, we're coming to get you, Barbara.
Yeah.
Or even when he's talking to Pete upstairs in the bathroom, when we know Pete is dead, and he's just kind of, you know, sheepishly talking to him, and he's all like, "You're welcome to join us," you know, and I'm like, "Evil Dead." He said, "Join us." It's an Evil Dead reference, you know. So, you know, so that's probably why it rang true with me.
Yeah.
Because I was getting the jokes, I was getting the references, but I was also enjoying the fun that they were having, and it seemed like they were having a hell of a lot of fun on that set. Okay. I think it just comes off that way with the actors.
Okay, well, before
you ever notice that?
No, I hadn't actually paid attention to any of those references. Now I need to go back and watch it just to see those references.
See if you can pull them.
Yeah. So before we get to our respective top 3 films in the horror, you do have a correction on the release dates, or you have official commentary on the release dates for Shaun of the Dead, which was your number 4.
I do. The UK release was April 9th of 2004.
Okay.
The United States release was September 24th of 2004.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I didn't see it long before it came out here in the States, but it wasn't as long as I remembered. So,
okay.
So it was false. So I stand corrected. I was wrong. You were right. I was wrong. You were right.
That's okay. That's okay, because I mean, I didn't even think about the fact. I mean, it makes sense that it came out in the UK before it came out in the United States. But I just didn't even necessarily think about the fact that it came out in the UK first. But I knew that it came out in 2004 in the US because I remembered watching it at that point.
Okay. I can't remember if it was like, I honestly thought it was like early 2005. So
yeah,
I was only off by like half a year.
No, I mean 4 months. I mean not too bad. 3-4 months. Okay. So my number 4 was Roger Corman's Mask of the Red Death, and yours was Shaun of the Dead. So my number 3 is F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu from 1922. Is the his famous unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. It has Max Schreck as Count Orlok, and it's about as definitively great a horror movie as I think has ever been produced. I mean, we've talked about silent films before on here. I mentioned Haxan. We talked about Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Nosferatu is the other pillar of the horror genre when it comes to silent cinema. And just the way Murnau designed Max Schreck's character, the way it brings the Bram Stoker story to life, it is just absolutely haunting. I've watched it with several different scores over the years. The DVD I have has both an organ score as well as a contemporary music score. I used to think the organ one was better, but I do tend to go to the contemporary one more often than not. But both of them are very good. And there's not a whole. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend seeing Shadow of the Vampire, which is a drama about the making of Nosferatu, which poses the theory that Max Schreck was actually a vampire. And Max Schreck in that movie is played by the wonderful Willem Dafoe. And yeah. So I think I don't think I had seen Nosferatu before I saw Shadow of the Vampire. I think I actually blind bought Nosferatu. It was because of the fact that I liked Shadow of the Vampire is the reason I blind bought it, because A, I couldn't really find it for rent, but B, I just wanted to have it because Shadow of the Vampire just piqued my interest so much.
I like them both. I'm with you. And you absolutely, being a score guy, and I enjoy scores myself. And I lean more towards the horror scores or Western scores. But yeah, the Nosferatu is it's a must see. If you like vampires, or you like the story that of the vampires, like like you said, Bram Stoker's Dracula was the obviously the inspiration behind it. But you need to check it out. And I know some people that don't like silent films, but or they even I even know people that won't watch black and white films. Like they won't watch Clerks because it's in black and white. Like, stop being
that's ridiculous
weird.
Right there. Like, I mean, I still can't understand not watching black and white films at all. But I mean, I can't really I can't imagine why anybody would object to watching Clerks because of the fact that it's in black and white. It's like it's not 40s or 50s black and white. It's contemporary. But
right.
No, I mean,
yeah. It's odd. People's personal tastes are a little bit odd. Obviously, if you don't share that same, excuse me, that thing, like silent films. When people are like, I've had people come to me and like ask me for about silent films, and I'll say, check out Joan of Arc, check out Metropolis, check out, now I say the Cabinet of Caligari, Dr. Caligari, and Nosferatu is always on that list.
Yeah,
it's stunning. I missed an opportunity. I don't think I've ever watched a version that didn't have the organ music.
Yeah.
But I missed an opportunity at a local theater up here. They once had a live orchestra, like sort of live orchestra. It was probably like more of a 10-piece, or less than 10-piece setup. They played the music along with the Nosferatu film on the screen.
Okay.
And I really wanted to go see that, and I missed out on it. So they probably played the more contemporary score.
Yeah.
Like you said, but I've never watched it without the organ.
Mm-hmm.
The organ accompaniment, because I've only seen it on VHS.
Okay.
And I think it was even like a copy of a copy of a copy. But I enjoyed it. It had those lines in it, and it had those moments where the sounds kind of, has those little moments.
Yeah.
But I love that Nosferatu, that little Nosferatu film that good.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Werner Herzog's remake of Nosferatu with Klaus Kinski?
I haven't.
It's actually, it was something they did in the late 70s, and it's really interesting. I've only seen it once, but I mean, he actually filmed on a lot of the same locations as Murnau for Nosferatu. I mean, the idea of Klaus Kinski playing that particular version of Dracula just alone makes it worthwhile because of the fact that he was such a crazy actor. But
a little bit of a ham.
Yeah, it's really quite cool to watch that movie.
That's interesting. I like Herzog, and I don't really have an opinion of Klaus Kinski, because I think the only movie I've ever watched with him in it might be Fitzcarraldo.
Yeah. I mean, Aguirre is another one, which Aguirre was one they did in the 70s together, and yeah, that's an amazing movie. Fitzcarraldo's a terrific movie as well. But yeah, I mean, Aguirre was kind of like it's very much a spirit, as Roger Ebert mentioned. I think Aguirre is kind of a spiritual brother to Fitzcarraldo too. So I mean, I would definitely recommend trying to check out your Wrath of God as well, if you're a fan of Fitzcarraldo. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen Herzog's Nosferatu in a long time, but I definitely want to. But yeah, I mean it, and I definitely want to see it again. It's it's really something else to watch him like adapt. Like it's not even Dracula. It's obvious. It's Nosferatu, and it's like that's part of the reason it's so good is because of the fact that it's not adapting the Dracula that you know, and that's one of the things I really like about it.
Is it silent film?
Oh no, it's contemporary. I mean, contemporary for
raw dialogue?
1979. It's subtitled. It's foreign language film
Okay.
because it was made in Germany. So
German,
yeah,
yeah.
it was during his German phase. So yeah, it's subtitled.
Excellent. I'll definitely be on the lookout for it.
Okay.
Maybe I should revisit Zog some more.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually going to be Herzog's actually going to be my bookend filmmaker for this coming year of the movie a week series on Sonic Cinema. So and it occurred to me that the reason I chose him was because of the fact that it occurred to me just how little I've really been rewatching or watching some of his movies for that series, and so it's like I really need to watch his movies on a regular basis because there's so many I still haven't seen, both his features and his documentaries. Um, and
One of my favorites of his, I don't know if you've seen, is Even Dwarves Started Small.
No, I still haven't seen that one. I've heard another friend of mine is a huge Herzog fan, so he's seen. I know he's seen that one. I think he's seen like most of his other narrative films at least. So
Right.
yeah. So my number
Excellent.
3 is F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. What do you have for your number 3?
Mine is a duel, two movies that they go together, and whenever I start to watch one, I have to watch the other,
Mm-hmm.
and I usually go in order, just like you do with the Friday 13th 1 and 2. Mine is from 2003 and 2005 respectively. Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects.
Okay.
These movies blew me away.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of classic horror, and in the early 2000s, the whole Scream uprising,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the revolution, it was over.
Yeah.
Horror was kind of again starting to find its voice again, and it went towards more supernatural, dark movies.
Yeah.
But I craved like the old days. I hate to say it because I was like 21, but I was craving
Mm-hmm.
the days of like when I was a kid. And I'd watch all these movies from the 70s and 80s, and House of a Thousand Corpses, and both movies are filmed in two different styles.
Yeah.
Which I really like about that. How we switched up the styles of filmmaking between the two movies. The first one is his love letter to 70s horror.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely tell his influences, from when he was growing up. He threw out all the favorite tropes, so to speak, of the 70s genre films. And to me, we had to search for it again. It was another one of those movies that wasn't getting a wide release in 2003, and we got lucky again. It came to one of the local theaters, so we had to make a little bit of a drive.
Mm-hmm.
But we drove, we paid our money, we ate our popcorn, and I was blown away by the movie. As soon as it hit DVD, I was ready to. I had my money at Best Buy waiting for it to open up and take my money. I want my copy, and I still have that copy today.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy to say I still have that. And then when I heard, The Devil's Rejects is coming out, which is, I was like, oh, cool, he made another movie, Devil's Rejects. And everybody's like, no, it's a direct sequel to House of Thousand Corpses.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I had to go see it. So I was there opening night to see it. And whenever I go to watch House of Thousand Corpses, I can't just stop and move on with my life for now. I have to spend the next hour and a half, hour and 40 watching Devil's Rejects. Right. They're so complementary to one another, just like you said with Friday the 13th 1 and 2. It's just they go together well, even though they're too stylized. Like this, Devil's Rejects is gritty. It's dark. It's dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Not like dirty, but like not adult film dirty, but it's grimy, and it's more seriously dark, and it's a beautiful film, especially the last like 10 minutes. It's a beautiful. It's a little bit like poetry. Excuse me, a little bit like poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't. The Captain Spaulding character, Sid Haig, became a household name.
Yeah.
When it comes to fans, he's been in like 200 things, but he was never at the forefront of fans. Fans didn't know his name. They're like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, here's that guy again. There's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody knows now it's Sid Haig, and
yeah.
And then he just started on Instagram. If anybody cares, it's Sid Haig's on Instagram. And the stuff he shares is so fascinating because I love history, especially cinematic history. And he posts a picture from like a movie he did in like the late 60s or early 70s, the 80s, and he just talks about his experience on that film. And I'm like, man, I would love to hear everything this guy has to say about his career.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I became a huge Sid Haig fan too, and of course Rob Zombie. Like, I was like, what can he do next? And he did. He blew me away with Devil's Rejects, and
yeah,
I can't speak. Another movie I can't say that will never. It'll probably be forever on my top 10.
Mm-hmm.
There would have to be a huge slew of amazing movies to come out to knock that out of the top 10.
Yeah.
Both of them. And I consider them, although the two movies, to me, they're one.
Well, and I know
part one of it.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned it when you were talking about Lords of Salem earlier. I was not a fan of House of Thousand Corpses when I first saw it in 2003, but I think because of the fact that I've heard so much good about Devil's Rejects, I do want to go back and at least watch those two. And now I'm gonna try and make sure I watch Lords of Salem as well, and just to give House of Thousand Corpses another chance, just because of the fact that because my knowledge of the genre, because my appreciation of the genre is greater than it was when I saw it in 2003, I have a feeling I'll probably appreciate it more. And so I'm definitely curious to rewatch House of a Thousand Corpses as well as watching Devil's Rejects as well. So I mean that is something I'm going to revisit at some point. So
when you watch the Thousand Corpses, look at it as more of it's a love letter to 70s horror.
Okay.
And you can tell the love that he has for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've seen enough horror from the 70s that you get what he's going for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
I think
if you watch it as more of like, oh, this is a murder fest that just happens to be placed in the 70s, then it's like, I can understand that someone wouldn't, not you in particular, but somebody wouldn't be that caring for it. But because I knew of Rob Zombie's like love for 70s horror, even going into it, that's probably one of the reasons why I found it so compelling to me.
Yeah.
And it was what I was looking for. I really was looking for something exactly like that when, awful like vampire movies and stuff were coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean they'd started to remake Japanese horror by this point, and with The Ring, and then Ju-on turning into The Grudge, and then actually same year's House of a Thousand Corpses was that god awful Texas Chainsaw remake produced by Michael Bay, which was just appalling. I mean, so it was another case, like we were talking about with Scream, where it's like horror really didn't have a strong identity. Like the Scream phase had kind of ended, and so it's like, what was going to be the next identity for horror genre, for genre fans? I mean, it doesn't surprise me, knowing the fan base zombies films have, especially those two, it doesn't surprise me that those two stood out ahead of the crowd. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it is something I'm going to definitely revisit. And I actually may, now that you mentioned Sid Haig being on Instagram, I may very well go follow him myself, because yeah, that's one of the thing. It's a type of thing that I like about um, when somebody like that does Instagram. The idea of, sort of telling both your personal life story as well as film history on Instagram, especially through images, is just fascinating. So yeah, I may very well go start following Sid Haig on Instagram because of that.
Yeah, do it. And he also gets more personal too. On November 1st, he posted a picture of his wedding photo of him and his wife from their wedding, and because he just celebrated 10 years of marriage with his current wife. So he gets a little personal too.
Yeah.
And I totally believe it's him, because when you can tell when a celebrity has a representative that's doing their social media.
Yeah.
Everything's like it doesn't seem personal, but when the words are there and you read it, you can feel like there's feeling here. There's attachment to this photo. So
yeah,
do yourself, and everybody who's listening, go follow Sid Haig on Instagram. Like it's fun. He posts some good stuff.
Yeah, I'll definitely be doing that. Okay, so number 3 for you was House of Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. That brings us to number 2. And for me,
number 2.
Number 2 is from 1942. It is Jacques Tourneur's Cat People. Is the first production by Val Lewton in his famous deal and famous run of supernatural thrillers with RKO in the 1940s. This film was notoriously made for next to no budget. It was one of the highest grossing movies of the year, though. It is about a young woman who falls in love with a young woman from Serbia who falls in love with an architect, and they get married, but she is concerned about consummating the marriage because she does not. There's an old tale of turning into an actual cat, and it's made primarily out of shadows. It's a very B movie story, but the atmosphere and the sensuality of the star Simon Simone is just absolutely mesmerizing. It is 75 years old this year. It's the first of Val Lewton's productions of supernatural thrillers that include I Walked with a Zombie, The Curse of the Cat People, Bedlam with Boris Karloff, what else? Isle of the Dead. And if you're a horror fan and you haven't seen Val Lewton's films, I highly recommend tracking down the box set, or you can run through Netflix, I'm sure, at least disc. But I know the DVD, the box set is available. It's well worth picking up if you can find that box set. It's got all of the movies in there. It's got some documentaries, commentaries, interviews, and it's Cat People was something. It's very short, 73 minutes. Criterion actually just released it as well. And it's one of the things that I really like about horror, and one of my favorite types of horror, which is supernatural, but more based around, but it's atmospheric as opposed to visceral horror. I mean, I enjoy a good slasher film. I enjoy a good horror film with blood and guts, but supernatural thrillers, atmospheric thrillers are definitely the things that resonate with me the most. And Cat People was one of the best examples of that.
Excellent. I agree. I enjoy Cat People stuff. I probably should pick up that box set because I probably have only seen Cat People from him.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Curse of the Cat People, it's interesting. I reviewed that for Movie a Week for Sonic Cinema this month. And it's interesting because of the fact that Curse of the Cat People, that was basically a studio imposed title. It really it's very much a sequel to the movie, but it doesn't have the same focus on that particular issue that Simon Simone's character has in the original film, but it focuses on her husband who has remarried and their daughter. And it's really interesting because of the fact that it made me really think that I wonder, and it's from the same writer of the original Cat People, but the focus in there's common thematic material, but it's not the type of material that you expect. And so that sequel was it's very interesting to watch those two films and see it's like there's some things in common without not just story wise, but there's some common thematic issues at heart too, even if it's not what you think based on the title.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean Val Lewton's productions are definitely worth checking out for horror fans, especially if you're a fan of supernatural thrillers. And I mean, there are some names you're definitely going to recognize in that list too. Robert Wise, who was an editor and edited Citizen Kane before that. His first two films came from Val Lewton's collection, and Boris Karloff is in one or two of the films. And yeah, it's just a really nice collection of old school horror, and that's one of the things that I really like about it.
Excellent.
So my number 2 is Cat People, and Marv, what is your number 2?
Your listeners are going to love this because it's going to go by quick. My number 2 is Friday the 13th, 1 and 2, for same reasons you said. Moving on.
No, go ahead.
We finally overlapped. We
Yeah.
finally overlapped. We finally hit on one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's,
I mean, there's a lot you can say about the Friday the 13th franchise in general after the first two, but yeah, I mean the first two, I mean it makes sense that you put 1 and 2 together because of the fact that they basically follow a very direct narrative loop.
Yeah, same with like Devil's Rejects and House Thousand Corpses. It's the same reasons. It's like when you watch them together, it's one full tale.
Yeah,
it's one solid story. And I almost added 3, but I couldn't do it because it's so cheeseball. Like it was 3. It's filmed in 3D, so they have like yo-yos coming and juggling and all that garbage. But the reason why I was going to add 3 is because that is. The character Shelley brings a bunch of stuff with him to the house, the cabin, or actually, I believe it was just a farmhouse in part 2 or part 3. But he brings a hockey mask. Yeah, and that's when Jason puts on the iconic mask for the first time in part 3. So that was pretty much the only reason why I wanted to add part 3, but I backed out because it's not the best in the series.
No, I watched it again. I mean, you commented on it, and I mean, you know that I watched the third one again for like the first time in 30 years, and it's like, yeah, it is so cheesy, is so completely predictable. I mean, yes, he gets the hockey mask in it, and that's the first time he wears that, but yeah, so much of it is just.
In the character Shelley, like in the beginning, if you see in the beginning, he's like, I brought everything I have in the world or whatever in that bag. everything and how much like that little bag, it was like a cartoon. It was like Hermione's bag in like the Deathly Hallows. Like it's seriously like he had like 5 different masks. He had a wetsuit, like scuba gear. He had like a harpoon gun. It's like what?
Yeah.
Where's he getting all his guns?
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost added 3 because of the iconic moment where he wears the hockey mask for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, pound for pound, Jason Voorhees is my monster of choice. Like if they're like, who's your favorite slasher? Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, Michael Myers, Pinhead, all of them. Jason Voorhees without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I think I and the funny thing is, it's like deep down, I think I give this slight. I think intellectually speaking, I would give the slight edge to Freddy just because of the fact that it's such a cool. It's such a cool idea. Just the idea of somebody who can kill you in your dreams. I mean, that in itself is just downright terrifying. But I mean, I think deep down in my heart of hearts, I probably prefer Jason. I mean, for no other reason than, I mean, it's fun to watch him dispatch people. And I mean,
right.
That was a franchise that I gravitated towards growing up. I watched like the first 6 when I was a kid, and I just enjoy that franchise so much. Are you telling me that you're going now, sweetie?
Is that Haynes?
No, that would be my wife, Meredith. Why would I call Ronnie sweetie? Why would I call? I didn't hear what you called.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't hear what you called her. Yeah. All I heard is me going out and then.
No, that would be Meredith. That would be my wife, Meredith.
Sorry, Meredith. Sorry, Meredith.
Bye. Drive safe. Oh wow, that's funny.
I didn't hear you call her sweet.
No, that's all right. That's okay. That was just funny. Yeah, that's not the first time she's walked in on me on a podcast though. But
fun little cameo.
That's okay. I mean, that one might actually stay in because it's pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, and Friday 13th. But yeah, Friday 13th was I mean, that was my franchise of choice, and it's like I finally watched the rest of it like later on in life. I think around the time the reboot came out, and yeah, I mean, deep down, I think just Jason is probably my favorite slasher monster, and I mean, it's just because of the fact that it's fun to see. It's cool that he's got the hockey mask. That's just iconic. And then plus I think part of it is also because of the fact that the kids are so stupid in those movies. Like I think like Jason, if I could find a way to justify putting Jason Lives with 1 and 2, I would probably include that because that is probably one of my favorite that's probably my top 20 favorite horror movies, just because of the fact that it is so ridiculously funny, and it's like just watch. It's so intentionally funny, and the way that they incorporate humor with that movie, and they're very knowing of how ridiculous the movie is.
Right. I have a little bit of a personal connection too, because Friday the 13th was my introduction to horror. And a lot of people, when they get introduced to horror, they're like 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
I was 2.
Oh, wow.
I was 2 years old. Although it came out in 1980, it was still playing in our area in the Midwest here in 1981, which was not uncommon for movies to play for a year or two.
Oh, yeah.
Even back then, they were still playing. Now it's like, if it doesn't make money in the first couple of weeks, they're out of there. You know how it is. I was 2 years old, and I was highly intelligent for 2. I learned my ABCs when I was at 2. I could count to 100 by the time I was 3. My mom was like, she was going to take me to a movie because my dad took my sister to see Bambi or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Lady and the Tramp. My mom was going to take me to go see a movie, and I got to pick. Well, I was seeing the TV spots for Friday the 13th. And I wanted to see Friday the 13th. I wanted to see. I said I wanted to see 13. I think I kept calling it 13 or whatever. She's like, "All right, fine." And she was getting back then. The parents just were they were a little more lax with protecting their children.
Yeah.
And my mom took me to see Friday the 13th. I sat there, I guess, with my popcorn on one side of me, like tucked into the chair. I was sat there with like my feet, on the chair.
Mm-hmm.
Just pop soda to one side, popcorn to the other. And I sat there and I guess I just watched it and enjoyed it with a smile. And my mom thought I would grow up to be a killer, like a murderer, because I could sit there and watch horror movies with a smile at 2 years old. And she was like one of the biggest supporters of my horror love. She would be like, "What do you want to see?" And I'd be like, "Well, I want to see, Jason 4." So we went and saw the final chapter together in the theaters. We didn't go see Friday the 13th Part 3 because I had just lost my eye and I couldn't see 3D. I couldn't see 3D anyway, so we skipped that one. We missed Part 2, but we saw 4, and I believe we saw 5 together. But yeah, and I saw 6 as well. So Friday the 13th was my introduction to horror. A little crazy kid, but I was never afraid of the dark, and I kind of attribute it to my love of horror and movies in general. And I got it. Even at 2, I got what movies were, and I think that's why I've always been the head of caption. Is I got these are people playing. These people are they're goofing off, having fun, killing each other. So I think I was never afraid of the dark. I would go out, like when I was like 6 or 7, I'd wait for my mom to go to sleep because I lost my father. By time, like when I was 3, I lost my father. So I'd wait for my mom to go to sleep, and then I would sneak out in the woods at like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and I would play like I was Jason, or I would play like I was a camper that was being stalked by like Pamela.
Yeah.
Or like whatever the case may be. And people are stunned to find out. And I would dig holes in the backyard. And I'd pretend I was in the London fog after I just watched a bunch of Universal horror films or something, Hammer films. I would seriously, by moonlight, I'd be digging holes. My mom's never really found out until I was digging holes. She's I'm gonna have to call the cops because somebody's digging holes in my backyard. And I was like, no, don't call. I'm like, what? And I'm like, it was me. And like, when'd you do that? And I was like, in the middle of the night. I was pretending I was grave robbing. So if you ever watched Tim Burton's short film called Vincent, that was me. That was me on some night. So that was a little weirdo. So Friday the 13th, thank you for making me a little weirdo.
Okay, so we come to the number 1 slot, and if you know me, if you've listened to the podcast, Marv, you know me, you can probably guess this coming from a mile away. It is Stanley Kubrick's. Yeah, it is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Yes.
Which is absolutely it was one of my earlier Kubrick films. I think I'd watched it for the first time at Network, and it had an impression on me, but it wasn't until I watched the uncut version, and then I just kept coming back to it. And I think a lot of the reason I kept coming back to it was because of that fantastic fly on the wall documentary that Vivian Kubrick made that was on the DVD. And so being able to see Kubrick at work, really I watched that a lot, and I would watch the movie a lot, and it casts a spell on me every time I watch it. It's the Overlook Hotel, the way that it works on a psychological level, the way it works on a supernatural level, and the fact that, and it's funny because of the fact that Ron actually came home from work on Halloween while I was watching The Shining, and he came in at the sort of the halfway point, and it was after Wendy hits Jack with a baseball bat, and he gets locked, and she locks him in the food locker, and when Grady, quote unquote, opens up the door for him, Ron's like, I thought it was supernatural. I thought the horror was supernatural. I thought it was ghosts. I didn't think it was. And he was confused by the fact that it's like he was questioning the fact that how is Jack getting out? How is, if it's supernatural, if it's just ghosts, or if it's him going crazy, how is he being let out?
Then I thought it was all in his mind.
Okay.
That's what I said.
All right. Ron obviously had to. I kind of figured he had to chime in there. So yeah, he thought it was all in his head. So it's like, how is he being let out? I mean, I know there's a theory about the fact that, well, maybe Danny lets him out. But the thing is, it's like I like the fact that The Shining works on several different levels. It works on psychological level, works on pure horror level, works on a supernatural level, and it's one of those things. There's so many great things about it. There's the cinematography. There's the set of the Overlook Hotel. There's the music that Kubrick uses. Both Wendy Carlos's score as well as the classical pieces. And then there are the performances with Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall and Danny Lloyd, Scatman Crothers. And everything just comes together in making that movie one of the creepiest damn movies ever. And just I love it's like a fun house of horrors for me, and it's been very inspirational for me over the years watching it time and time again as far as my appreciation for horror has grown.
I adore that movie a lot, and it was gonna make my list, but I knew you were. I didn't want to bury your lead with your top. I left it out on purpose.
But the fact of the matter is, you've got a pretty decent list here, so it's like. And again, I kind of figured we would have we wouldn't have a whole lot of overlap. So, and that's one of the things I liked because of the fact that we're talking about completely different movies, and it's like we're, with very few exceptions, and it's like, and it's been really good that we've been able to say that most of the movies that are on one list I've also seen, so it's like I can talk about it too. So
right, same here. I'm a big fan of black and white, the old school like Universal Horror and Hammer, and just I just don't. I feel more connected with the ones I grew up with. And to be honest, this morning I got a new T-shirt, and it's a Shining T-shirt.
Oh, cool!
So. I got a bunch of them actually. They were Halloween shirts that were on sale for like $4 a piece, so I had to grab them. But yeah, the Shining for me, I didn't see The Shining until about 96 or 97.
Okay.
Because it was always one that I never got to, and I always wanted to see. And people had told me like, oh, if you like this, you're gonna like The Shining, or if you like that, you're gonna like The Shining. And I'm like, oh, cool, and I'll check it out sometime. And I never did until my friends actually they're like, you've never seen The Shining? You're a huge horror fan. How can you not see The Shining? And they actually said, get out in the car, come on. And we got in the car. We drove 20 minutes to Hollywood Video, and with all the colors, the lights, and the excitement. And we rented The Shining, and I sat down and watched it, and I was blown away. Mm-hmm. And I took the tape because we had it for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And I took the tape with me, even though it was on their account, and I watched it like 3 more times over the next couple of days. We all took it back. We took it back, and I wound up renting it again a couple more times throughout the years, or throughout the next couple of years. And then I finally bought it on VHS. Mm-hmm. Back in 2000, we were already starting to get in the DVD age. And I'm all like, I got a VHS tape, guys. You want to come over and watch it? But yeah, The Shining is a beautiful film. Have you seen Room 237?
I have. I mean, we've actually discussed it a little bit to a certain extent. I will admit, I find it interesting. I find the theories behind it interesting. I don't think it's something that should have been a feature film. I think it's something that should have been like maybe a documentary to go with the film, or something for a podcast or something like that. Or
even YouTube videos.
Huh?
Do like 20 to 30 minute YouTube videos on each of the
exactly.
theories.
Like again, it's interesting that all of these people have these different ideas about it and stuff like that. It's so conspiratorial, though. And it's like, I think that's one of the things where it's like, I don't put a whole lot of weight on it because of that. Because it's like, to a certain extent, you're reaching. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that it's like, with all of Kubrick's films, you can interpret a lot in them. And The Shining is no different. But I mean, there's some real. I feel like there's a lot of stretches that are made in terms of it. There are a lot of stretches being made in Room 237 as far as like what the underlying ideas of the film mean. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that's anything. I don't think necessarily. Now, yeah, I mean, Kubrick probably did have some of those things in his head when he was making it, but I don't think he deliberately. I think he was just trying to make a horror movie. I think he was just adapting what he wanted out of Stephen King's book and turning it into a horror movie unlike really anything else. I mean, I'll admit it's interesting. There's some, I love the passion behind the ideas. I just don't necessarily. I think there's some that might hew closer to reality than others, but yeah, I think a lot of it is conspiratorial, and it's like, yeah, I think it's a glorified YouTube video.
we share a very same opinion on it. When I'm asked about it, I'm like, it's a fascinating documentary, and I know Kubrick was known for being a perfectionist.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was that much into detail upon this film. Like with the poster of the skier or whatever.
Yeah.
How it matches up with like whatever else was in there. I don't remember the theory exactly, but I'm like, I don't think that was legit, or like the Calumet, was it baking soda?
Yeah.
Baking powder. The way the cans are positioned just right, and there's like Indian heads in it shown in another room on the Native Americans. Sorry, yeah. I'm half Indian, so I can say it. Yeah. but yeah, there's different pictures, and it's like it's the Trail of Tears. It's referencing the whole movie is a reference on the plight of the Native American, and I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think it's cool. It's a fun theory. It's fun to think about that deep into stuff, but at the end of the day, you got to be like, look at yourself and be like, how far are you going to dig this hole? Because they had studio time restraints and things like that to deal with. It takes a lot to be clever like that and make sure the shots are exactly correct.
Well, and the thing is, it's like with like the Native, especially with the Native American stuff, it's like, yeah, it makes sense. There's a lot of Native American motifs and stuff like that. They say, oh, I think it was built on an Indian burial ground, stuff like that. It's the West. It's supposed to be in Colorado. Of course it's supposed to, of course there's going to be Native American motifs. If you've been to Colorado, you know that. But yeah, I mean, the idea that's, the way one of them ties into the fact that the famous conspiracy theory that Kubrick helped NASA, fake the moon landing and stuff like that. It's like, no, that
the way Danning's playing with his toys and the way the carpet is.
Yeah,
all that business. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
his sweater.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, no, you're grasping at straws there. But I mean, no, it's
fun.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's fun to think about that deep, but
yeah.
Here to leave it.
But no, The Shining is I mean the Shining is my absolute number one. It would take sort of like with you with House of Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. It's like it would take basically a landmine of a horror movie to probably supplant it from my number one slot for me. It's that impactful for me as a film fan, as somebody who appreciates the genre, as somebody who's grown to appreciate the genre more than I did when I was younger. And yeah, I mean, the Shining is just very much a one of a kind movie for me. So
the same with my number one. It'll probably never be dropped off the list.
Yeah.
And my number one is three movies.
And I have a feeling I know which three those are.
But I'm sorry, my top everybody. I'm gonna apologize to everybody who's listening who thinks I'm being cheap because I had trouble narrowing it down. My top three are 7 movies, so it's almost a whole mini list in itself. Do you want to shout out and see if you know which movies they are?
So you said 3 movies, right?
Yes, 1981, 87, and 92.
Yeah, I know exactly what this is. And one of them has already been on my list. So we are talking about the Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, which honestly,
Absolutely.
This does not surprise me one bit. I kind of have a feeling you would probably put all 3 of these together because I would have been very surprised if you'd only put one of these films on there. Because I know how much of a fan you are of the Evil Dead trilogy and Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi. And the thing is, it's completely legit. I completely get why you have these 3 films together. It's been way too long since I've seen Army of Darkness. I need to see that again. But all 3 of these films are just absolutely just fantastic. I love the different ways that they deploy the horror genre. I love the different styles of horror that we get from all of them. And I mean, you can't really go wrong with Bruce Campbell's Ash as one of the iconic horror characters in movie history.
And also, he's one of to me, it could be I'm a little bit biased, but he's one of the best cowards turned hero ever.
Mm-hmm.
On cinema. In the first movie, he's just a scared. Well, I think they're supposed to be like 21, 22, about ready to leave college. But like they're getting ready to party. He's just a scared young adult, and then he has to man up and be the hero.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets to the point where he's sick of being the hero, which is you can't see more of a metaphor that he's tired of it. And so you see Army of Darkness in the scene where he's getting back after he quote unquote gets the book, and there's a live procession. He just wants a drink of water, and there's a procession. And he's like, they're like, oh, yay, hooray! They're all cheering, and he's like, yeah, whatever, get the fuck out of my face. And he shoves people out of the way. It's like he's had enough, man.
Yeah.
But I can't get it, and that's another one, just like House. 1,000 Questions, Don't Rejects. If I'm watching them, I'm going to watch Evil Dead. I'm going to watch Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness before I get up and do anything else.
Oh, right.
I'm worried about deep vein thrombosis and blood clots and stuff sometimes when I'm in the mood for Evil Dead. And now I saw the reboot.
Yeah.
And some people call it a remake, but it's considered a reboot because Ash makes an appearance at the end of the credits.
Yeah.
So it ties in. It's in the same universe. And apparently there was, I don't know if it was a comic or if it was unreleased, like outline or whatever for Ash it was like Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a sequel.
Yeah.
And it was going to be Ash is going along, basically collecting Necronomicons around the world or whatever. And, which I really wish this got made. Because in Jason Goes to Hell, when Craven, the guy that's hunting Jason, he goes into Jason's place, his house, his shelter, and he finds a Necronomicon. And Ash becomes like an S-Mart manager, and he's tasked to opening up the S-Mart that's opening in Crystal Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also he's there to also find the book to another Necronomicon and destroy it. All the different Necronomicons around the world, and that's when he meets up with Jason and ultimately Freddy. And I'm like, would be incredible. I'm like, that'd be incredible.
Yeah,
and it makes sense why it would tie all together.
Yeah, I remember hearing the rumors about the fact that it's like if they were to follow up Freddy versus Jason, it would have been Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, and the rights but they couldn't get the rights to all three characters. I think Raimi was the one who balked at it.
Yeah, he was the
And
whole.
it's like, damn it! By that point I had seen all three of the Evil Dead movies, and I absolutely loved them. And it's like man, I so wanted to see that. And yeah,
Imagine
just
the
your description of it is like, yes, I absolutely want to see that.
imagine the banter between Freddy and Ash.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And then them like teaming up, making fun of Jason. Just like a 90-second moment in the film where they just kind of team up, mocking the hell out of Jason.
Oh, that is fantastic. Yeah, I mean,
But to finalize, I still have the Army of Darkness shirt you guys, awesomely got for me at Dragon Con in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I still have it. I still wear it. It's full of holes, so it's one of those that I wear around the house. But I absolutely still love it. It's I'll always thank you guys for the gifts you got me from Dragon Con.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I mean, that was I know Ron was the one thinking about that, but yeah, I mean, we both know how much you love all of the Evil Dead movies, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I would never like I've always enjoyed Evil Dead. I just appreciate the comedic I just love the comedic take on Evil Dead 2 more. Army of Darkness, like I said, it's been way too long since I've seen it. I need to see it again. And yeah, I mean, I still need to get into Ash versus Evil Dead on Stars. We have the Stars out. There's no reason I shouldn't be watching that at this point.
I have season 1. I've completely watched season 1. I bought season 2 before I started my 50 horror movies, so I haven't got to it yet because I don't have Stars.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we have the Stars app. Meredith has the Stars app for some shows that she enjoys, and so it's like I really need to watch Ash versus Evil Dead. So it's like, yeah, at some point I'll get to that myself.
But they're half an hour, and they are a full half hour.
I'm sorry?
Like no commercials. They're half hour long. The episode,
okay.
And they're a full half hour. Like there's no like.
Yeah.
It's a half hour show,
it's cable,
like 20
so
minutes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So.
Yeah, I need to get to season 2, but getting back to the reboot, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good companion piece. If you place it in, like, if you're trying to be like, well, which one is Ash? It's like, no, none of them are Ash, because Ash just exists in this world.
Yeah.
You'll see it in the credits. But it's like, it's a good companion piece that this is happening. And also that makes me think of the treatment or the outline for the Freddy vs. Jason Ash, that this is just another Necronomicon that Ash hasn't located yet.
Yeah.
That these kids pull upon, and so I am a fan of the reboot, and I was so adamantly against it. I was like, if there's going to be an Evil Dead movie without Ash, screw you, Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
I was spitting in my computer monitor when I read the news. So yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do? Did you have any honorable mentions or ones that didn't make the cut?
I mean, I've already mentioned some of them. I certainly already mentioned some of them. Creepshow's another one I would definitely put, like, the almost made it but not quite. I do appreciate we talked about Scream earlier when you put it on your list. That's one that's definitely not too far down on my list. Talking about Bruce Campbell a little bit more, I absolutely love Don Coscarelli's Bubba Hotep.
Bubba Hotep, yeah.
It was really a shame that Bubba Nosferatu never got off the ground.
Right.
Let's see.
I blame Burn Notice.
Mm-hmm.
For being popular.
Yeah, that's true actually. Let's see. I love the two that Haxon and It overtook on my top 10 list that were removed from last year. Gore Verbinski's The Ring, which is terrific American adaptation of Ring U with Naomi Watts. It was her first role after Mulholland Drive, and it's just I like it. I liken it in the. I look at it the same way I sort of look at The Shining. I mean, it's just a really well executed ghost story. Um, and so that was one of the films that got removed from my top 10. The other one was, we talked about Hammer a little bit earlier, was Terrence Fisher's Horror of Dracula, which was Hammer's first Dracula adaptation with Peter Cushing as Van Helsing and Christopher Lee as Dracula. That is.
I just watched that. I watched that one as a part of my 50.
Yeah, and that was one that Ron and I watched on Halloween as well, because he's really liked it after I showed it to him a long time ago. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, some of the I appreciate some of the Hammer movies. You know, you mentioned Universal movies. I mean, Bride of Frankenstein's the best of the Universal movies, I think. But I mean, you can't really go wrong with any of the iconic classics like Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman. Let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to. Cabinet of Dr.
Well, sit back.
Caligari, we talked about.
Oh, yeah. Sit back and think on some, and I'll just rattle off the ones that I did have on my list. The first up was Frankenstein, 1931. That one. It's so beautiful. I still think it's absolutely beautiful. And of course, that's where the iconic Frankenstein's monster's look came from. Mm-hmm. In the book, he's not described that way. And oh man, what's his name? Jack Pierce, the makeup effects guy for Frankenstein. He's the one that came up with the flat head, the bolts in the neck, the droopy eyes, the tight fitting suit. That was all Jack Pierce. Mm-hmm. Like I said, Last Man on Earth almost made it. It was actually number 10 for a while. But Last Man on Earth, starring Vincent Price, based on Richard Matheson's I Am Legend.
Yeah.
And of course, Omega Man, I Am Legend, and I Am Omega, the cheeseball direct-to-DVD movie.
Yeah.
Based on that. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people say it's. I've never read the book. But a lot of people say Last Man on Earth was the most loyal to the source material.
Yeah, that's why I've heard as well. I have seen Last Man on Earth is really good. A friend of mine actually let me borrow it around the time I Am Legend, the Will Smith film, came out. So yeah, I've seen Last Man on Earth as well, and yeah, it's really good.
Excellent. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original 1974. Mm-hmm. 1978's Dawn of the Dead, which is still, I think, the best Romero film.
Yeah.
Hellraiser, Clive Barker's Hellraiser.
Yeah, so, and I forget about Clive Barker because of the fact that it's like, I've seen Hellraiser, I've seen Nightbreed, and I've seen Lord of Illusions. But, yeah, I mean, I like what he does as a horror writer and as a horror filmmaker, but, yeah, I mean, none of those are... I need to go back and rewatch some of them, like especially Hellraiser and Nightbreed. But yeah, I mean, right. Clive Barker's definitely one of the more singular voices in the genre.
Right. I got Jaws.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people make judge that it's not horror, but how many people were afraid to go in the water after seeing Jaws?
I mean, that shark is one of the great movie monsters of all time. And yeah, I mean, that would probably be my top 20, probably. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, to a certain extent, it's like, and I'll go ahead and include one, not that it was in my top 20, because I do consider it more sci-fi than I do horror, but Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien.
The haunted house tale.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's a haunted house. It's a haunted house in space.
Yeah.
So to speak, with a stalker. Then part 2, obviously, Aliens is more of the action.
Yeah, it's more of a horror movie, and it's like, yeah, it's really one of the, because I rewatched that franchise before Covenant came out earlier this year, and yeah, it's fascinating to me that like how all of those films really tell very different stories and touch on a lot of different genres and genre tropes too. It's like with there's not really much similarity with any of those films, and that's one of the things I like about it.
And Ripley's pretty much the constant. Another one I had was, of course, The Shining. I said The Exorcist.
Yes.
That almost made the cut.
Mm-hmm.
John Carpenter's The Thing.
Mm-hmm. I need to see that again. I love it. I loved it when I see it, but I need to see it again because it's been too long.
And finally, the last one that almost made it was a little Canadian film called Cube.
I have heard about that over the years. I have not seen it. It's been in my Netflix queue for DVD queue for basically as long as I've had my Netflix DVD queue. But yeah, I just haven't gotten to it yet. But I've always heard very good things about it.
It's on Instant View right now. They just added it.
All right.
It's on the streaming Netflix. 1 and 2 are both on there. Cube 0 is not, which is the prequel. The way I rank it is Cube 1 is great. Mm-hmm. Cube 2 is pretty good. And Cube 0 is all right.
Okay.
The quality goes down a little bit with each one, but not to the point where it's like, they ruined it. There's my top 30 apparently.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's like even though my list has kind of been set in stone for a lot of years, I mean, there's still films that come to mind where it's like, yeah, that could definitely be on there. Yeah, that could definitely, like you mentioned Jaws. I didn't even think about that, but at the same time, it's like, well, why didn't I think about that? And I mean, because it's a fantastic movie. I mean, same with The Exorcist. I mean, when you mentioned The Exorcist, I was thinking, I haven't seen Exorcist 2 and 3, but I've seen both versions of Exorcist the Beginning. Both the Rennie Harlan one that was released in theaters, as well as the Paul Schrader one that they basically had Rennie Harlan reshoot. And Dominion, which is the Paul Schrader one, I really love. I really thought is a very good companion to the original Exorcist.
Well, you've learned this month when you suggested I should watch Dark Exorcist that I am not a fan of the Exorcist movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they don't click with me, but The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3 are the only two that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And I love The Exorcist, and I like Part 3. Part 2 is absolute garbage. Pazuzu, go to hell.
Yeah.
It's dumb. Stupid movie, a stupid premise, it's convoluted. I'm sorry. James Earl Jones should not subject himself to that crap. You're Darth Vader, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I feel about The Heretic.
Yeah.
Okay, we can go on for another 4 hours. If we
at least. I mean, yeah, we probably should. Yeah, I mean, we could easily go for another few hours. I mean, I think part of that is because of the fact that we don't really talk to each other otherwise, which is a shame, and probably need to do a better job of that on my part. But no, I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's like I knew when I came up with the group of episodes that I wanted to do horror related, I wanted to at least do one with you. And I like the fact that it's it was, and I like the fact that I was able to challenge you as far as making a list of your 10 favorite horror movies. I mean, even though it ended up basically being 15 with the, sequels and stuff like that.
3 and 7.
But the fact of the matter is, it's that's fine. That makes all the sense in the world to me. I get that. If you ask me my 10 favorite movies of all time, it's actually going to be 17 because 8 of them are Star Wars movies. But
right.
It's
they go together.
That's just I'm going to include those together. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, so I get it. I mean, like I said, it doesn't surprise me that it didn't surprise me at House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects were on there together. And it didn't surprise me that you had the Evil Dead movies on there together. Because, I mean, of course you do. Because it makes sense.
which one's your favorite child? You can't do that. At least not when they're around, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just like I can say Evil Dead 2 because that's the one that I watch the most. And it's like it's nothing against the other two. I just enjoy watching that one more. But yeah, I mean, with Friday the 13th Part 2, it's like those form a natural narrative. So it's
they're
like
companions.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we could absolutely go on for a few more hours, but yeah, we really should be wrapping it up. And I'm curious to see. I will probably, as much as I don't necessarily want to. I do think it'll probably be split into two. Like we'll do the top 10 as the second part, and then the first part will be the movies that we saw that were new to us that we really enjoyed over the past month or so. But I knew I wanted to do a sort of wrap up of this past October with you because of the fact that, I mean, you're one of the biggest horror movie buffs that I know, and I had so much fun talking to you the last podcast about it. And it's like, oh, I got to do at least one horror podcast with Marv. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'm glad we were able to do this today.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Yeah, so thank you very much to Marv Dickey, and I'm going to turn off the record here and then get everything saved and stuff like that. I'm not too worried about. I think everything should have turned out all right, but I'll go ahead and get that started. But before I let you go, and I'm just going to turn off the record here. Thank you very much to Marv Dickey for joining me to discuss our respective October horror marathons. It was a lot of fun. We could have gone for several more hours, but it turned out really well. Thank you for listening to us for quite a while, and I will definitely have more with Marv coming up soon. We'll do some discussions of just some movies that we're respectively familiar with and sort of like compare and contrast how we feel about them. And we'll probably do some more of that in addition to some more horror movie discussion. So for now, thank you very much. And this is the Sonic Cinema podcast signing off. Thank you very much.